So do you ever find yourself saying, oh, I feel really, really fat at the moment, or I'm feeling quite fat? You walk by a mirror, or in the store, you walk by those glass windows, and then you say, oh, look at myself, I feel really fat. Or you've eaten so much pizza, lots of brownies, lots of normally your binge foods, the foods you tend to avoid, and you think to yourself, oh, I feel fat. Maybe even just simply had breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which sometimes you might not normally do, and then you think to yourself, oh, I feel fat. So in this episode, I'm going to be discussing what's actually happening when you call yourself fat. And in the summary, I'm just going to say that this episode is about fat is not a feeling. You don't feel fat. There's a deeper reason to that. So just as an introduction, my name is Jonathan. I'm a dietitian that supports people who are struggling with binge eating. And oftentimes, binge eating isn't just only about the food. So the episodes of binge episodes is only a symptom of a greater problem or a greater issue, which is oftentimes deprivation, whether it's physically, where you're physically hungry, or mentally, whether you're avoiding any psychological fulfillment or just having these negative self-talk thoughts to yourself, such as calling yourself fat. So feeling fat is not an emotion. It's only simply a physical characteristic of your body. So as the author, Dr. Linda Bacon, says in her book, Health at Every Size, fat is not a feeling. When you say you feel fat, you're saying that you feel bad about yourself. That's not the same thing. By recognizing that fat is not a feeling, we start to explore the deeper emotions that might be driving your negative self-talk. So as an actionable step for what you can do, if you catch yourself calling yourself fat, I want you to explore and just think a bit more deeper. Why are you feeling fat? What emotions are coming through in your mind? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling stressed? Are you feeling maybe even insecure? Are you feeling quite vulnerable to difficult emotions? Are you even feeling angry? Once you could name your emotions, what specific emotions you're feeling, then you can address and pinpoint at what point do I feel angry? What are the things that are making me feel angry? What are the triggers to me feeling quite nervous? And at what point in the day do I start to say to myself, oh, I feel fat? Is it only when I body check? Maybe you want to maybe remove mirrors from your house if it might be really, really distressing. So once you can name your emotions, you can address them effectively. You can pinpoint exactly where they're coming from. So maybe you start to call yourself fat when you feel angry, when you feel stressed. So you might want to retrace your steps at, why am I feeling angry? What are the things that are making me angry? And how do I respond to that? Do I respond to it in a way that I just try to start negative self-talk to myself, or do I start to put it out to others? Or maybe I'm feeling quite shy, that I don't want to ruin that other person's feelings, so I throw all that negative energy back into myself, which is spiraling me into episodes of binge eating because I'm too scared to address my feelings towards that person, for example. So I'm just getting all this satisfaction, this dopamine hit from binge eating episodes, because I know this food, what I'm binging on, is not going to be judging me. So essentially, I want you to address those feelings and retrace those steps. What am I feeling and where are they coming from? So in summary, what I want you to do is to recognize when you call yourself fat, I want you to explore what specific emotions, what actual emotions are you feeling, and then try to retrace your steps, and then try to think, what triggered that emotion? What's triggering me to feel these difficult emotions, and what emotions am I feeling? Diet industry tells us that if we're at a thinner body weight, that we're hardworking, we're not lazy, we're very motivated, we take care of ourselves, and that if we're at a higher body weight, or at a fat body weight, if some people might call it, then we might be seen as lazy, low self-esteem, we don't really take care of ourselves, we're just very greedy, which is very, very untrue. There's tons of evidence to show that our body weight is heavily dictated by our genes, our environment, and so many more, and motivational factors such as where you're living. We could be living in food deserts, and for those who don't know what a food desert is simply, you could be living in a certain location, and then the closest locations of food sources would be McDonald's, KFC, Pizza Hut, Wendy's, essentially like fast foods, and you don't have any grocery stores that accounts to giving you any like fruits and veg, seasonal fruits and veg, or these dried fruits, frozen fruits. So you could be living in a food desert. It's a real privilege to be at a lower body weight. And in the book called Anti-Diet by dietitian Christy Harrison, she writes, "The diet industry depends on fat phobia for its survival. If we stop fearing fatness, we don't need diets anymore. By rejecting diet culture and embracing body positivity, we can work towards a more inclusive and accepting society." So essentially, like, this diet culture runs on making people feel guilty if there's no emotions. So emotions is what sells. It's the simple marketing. You need to have someone increase their pain points. And for most people, it's just feeling guilty, feeling fat, should I say, feeling quite vulnerable. That's what sells. So remember, if you're feeling fat, remember, just try to look into the deeper emotions. Try not to fall into this trap of getting grabbed by diet culture to get you to buy things, jump on diet plans, because that's essentially what the diet culture runs on: insecurity. That might be all good and well, but you might be thinking right now, okay, Jonathan, I'm gonna reduce my self-talk, my negative self-talk to myself, and try to pinpoint what specific emotions I'm gonna be feeling whenever I call myself fat. But you might be thinking, Jonathan, but if I'm at a higher body weight, won't I be at a higher risk of death compared to someone who's at a lower body weight? And I just want to say, as a registered dietitian who supports people who are struggling with disordered eating, eating disorders, binge eating disorder, that if you're at a higher body weight or whatever body weight you are, you can be metabolically healthy. And there is actual research coming from that, which I'm going to be linking in the description of this episode or podcast, wherever you're listening to this to, and also link it right over here. So essentially, if you're including these 4 healthy habits, which is including fruits and veg, your 5 a day, increasing physical activity, reducing alcohol or avoiding alcohol, and reducing or avoiding smoking. So if you include these 4 habits, then metabolically, you can be much healthier. So someone who's including and implementing these 4 habits at a higher body weight will be much more metabolically healthy than someone who is at a lower body weight, who people would be considering thin, even if they have 6 packs. If they're smoking, if they're not including their fruits and veg, if they're not implementing regular physical activity, and they're just drinking a lot. So let's put this in the example. So you might be having a high cholesterol. Reducing your weight is not going to ideally reduce your cholesterol levels. If you're implementing more fruits and veg, focusing more on the quality of fat, the monounsaturated fats, your olive oil, nuts, avocados, then that's going to reduce your cholesterol. There's not much evidence on weight. If you're going to be reducing or avoiding smoking and alcohol, that's going to reduce your cholesterol. If you're going to be increasing your physical activity, that's going to be reducing your cholesterol. So you can be then metabolically healthy, and you can implement these 2 other bits in life with diabetes. And there's not much strong evidence long-term about these 800-calorie diets with diabetes. It can be shown even to increase your risk of binge eating episodes. So implement these healthy, metabolically healthy habits. So if you want to be looking more deeply into the research papers in the articles, I'll be linking those in the description of this podcast or episode. So I hope you enjoyed this episode about that fat is not a feeling. And I just want to end with this little note that body positivity is not about being perfect. The body positivity movement is often misunderstood as promoting a certain body type or ideal, but true body positivity is about embracing and accepting all bodies regardless of size. And remember, you can be metabolically healthy at whatever body weight you are. As the author Sonia Renee Taylor writes in her book, Your Body's Not an Apology, body positivity is not about idealizing certain bodies over others. It is about dismantling the social structures that make it so difficult for us to see the beauty in all bodies. So whenever you feel fat, remember, focus on your emotions. Fat is not a feeling, and if people are judging you for your weight, then they're just victims of diet culture. Let's try to rise up over diet culture that, remember, diet culture runs on insecurities, it runs on fear, it runs on shame. If we all loved our bodies, then this diet culture about these slimming products, these fad diets, these rip-off programs, they're all gonna fall apart, because if people love themselves more and accept themselves for who they are, then we wouldn't be needing any of these. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I want you to comment below. Have you been a victim of body shaming or been a victim of diet culture? And if so, in what way? So if you need support and you're struggling with binge eating, because that's my jam, then check the link in the description of this podcast or episode or wherever you're listening to this to for my freebies, my resources to how I can help you from one-to-one coaching, my binge eating freedom course, and so many more. So see ya!